stretch your neck. But their specialty, of course, is ice.
Because it's really important if you're serious about cocktails. The idea being that the ice is extremely clear and pure.
You know what time it
In the
is?
form of columns,
It's time to
cubes,
get in the game
It's all
with your host, Santana J.
and adorn the right drink. The best seat in the house is at the bar, where you can catch the action and take the
Good
bartenders up on their
Tuesday
crafty
evening,
creations.
everyone.
Then-
Welcome to your favorite sports show on the dial, Get in the Game. I am your host, Satara J, and as I have promised, it is the month of new beginnings, and I'm so excited to begin this new series, Life After Football. And joining me this evening, I am happy to have in studio Mr. and Mrs. Lonnie Marts. So welcome them, please. You guys, welcome to Get in the Game. Thank you for being here this evening, and thank you guys for tuning in. I promise you this show is going to be amazing as we dig into the life pre-football, during football, and after. And it's just so amazing. First of all, I thank you, Mrs. Marts, for coming on the show, because I think a lot of times we see interviews with the man behind the helmet, but we don't see the woman behind the man. And so I really appreciate you coming on to kind of talk about what women face as the wives of an NFL player. So thank you for being here. Absolutely. Okay, so Mr. Marts, let's start from the beginning. A lot of time when I get a chance to talk to football players, they always say that it was something that they knew they were going to do from the beginning. Did you grow up with parents who were pushing you into that sport, and how did you kind of fall in love with the game?
No, I actually did not like football.
Oh, wow.
One of my early childhood memories is of running downstairs and turning off the TV when my uncles were watching it, and they would automatically chase me out the house. And so I did not like football. My uncles would buy me the old football jackets, the Letterman jackets, and I really didn't like it. Wasn't interested in it. And one day we moved from our one neighborhood to the other neighborhood, suburban neighborhood, and everyone played sports. And so you couldn't relate to anyone if you didn't play sports. So one of the neighborhood guys brought me out, had me to stay out, watch them play, get into every sport that we can get into, and I found that I could actually play football better than anything else. And so that's how I started to play football. My dad passed when I was 7, and so I had a cousin that took me under his wing, and he started to teach me a little bit more about football and taking me out to play some real football with some older guys, and he learned a little bit more about football and brought it back to the neighborhood to see how good you were.
Now, you grew up in Louisiana, correct?
Yeah.
So back in Louisiana, that's where you're playing in the streets, right? Or I mean, that's street ball. So that's a little bit different than playing on a nice, soft, cushy field in the suburbs. How did that kind of shake your mentality as far as the game is concerned? Because if I'm a kid, if I'm 7 years old and I'm playing football in the streets, skinning up my knees, probably seeing the worst of the worst injuries, that didn't make you sour to the game of football?
Not really. I think playing in the suburbs, we're playing the street ball, but it allowed me the opportunity to grow. Whereas when you step out on a football field, everything is regulations, organized. You have to learn a different way to play now. The game is about rules. You make your own rules when you're in the street, right? And so getting a chance to grow at it and become a little bit better at it really helped me to move along in it and really love the game. Plus the guys that I was playing with, they were really good. They were on TV, and you would play with them in the street, and you'd see them on Friday nights playing. And so it kind of lit something in you wanting to go out and play because you knew you were just as good as they were.
Awesome. So tell me, at what point did you kind of decide, okay, this is what I'm good at, forget all the other sports? What other sports did you play?
I ran track, played a little bit of basketball, but football was pretty much it.
Was it? So when did you know that was going to be your ticket?
You know what? I didn't. I did not know. My coach knew. I had a coach, Al Jones. Went to St. Augustine High School. And I tell this story all the time. I'll make it short. He found out that I quit the team because it was too tough.
Oh, wow.
It was hard. I quit the football team, my high school team. And
wait, you quit football because it was too tough. What about it was so tough that would make you want to quit?
Making the team was tough.
Yeah.
So I knew trying to make the team, the conditioning and the running and just the strength training that need to go along with it. And we did everything out on a black top.
Ooh, that's hot in Louisiana.
Yeah, and in the summer, it was crazy. So I tried. I failed at least 2 times trying to make the team.
Wow.
And so I quit after I made the team. They switched my position to a center or something. And I was like, that's it, I'm not playing. I don't want to play anymore. I quit.
I don't want to snap the ball to the quarterback.
I'm done. I'm done. I don't want anybody hand on my butt. I'm done, you know. And so I quit. And literally, this guy made me get out of, we had a lunch line that he made me get out of the lunch line until I said I was going to come out and play.
Wow.
Every day I would eat lunch last for like 2 weeks, and finally I got fed up. And I was so angry, I went to practice hot, mad. And I got to practice, and the rest was
the rest is history. So you choose to go to Tulane University, stay close to home. What about that university attracted you to their football program and to choose that over any other school that may have been looking at you?
To be honest with you, I was actually going to USL. And
okay.
I was going to USL, and the coach that recruited me from USL, I skipped the grade. So I graduated early. I graduated at 16. And so my mother was not real happy about me leaving to go play at Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay.
And so my coach that recruited me at USL he was recruited by Mac Brown at Tulane. And he could not call me because I had committed to USL. So my mom tells me, make a call to him at Tulane.
Yeah.
And everything else worked out, so that's why I went to Tulane. Better education. I'm at home. My mom can keep her eyes on me. And so I wound up staying at home at Tulane. So Tulane was it was a perfect fit.
Yeah. At home where your mom could keep her eyes on you. And your uncles, I'm sure, because at this point, they're probably like, yes, it worked. He's finally playing football. So Mrs. Mart, when do you enter into the football story?
I think junior year.
Junior year, yeah.
High school
Tulane.
or
No,
college?
Tulane.
Oh, so you went to Tulane as well?
No, we're both from New Orleans.
Okay.
So we're moving in the same small circles. in New
Gotcha. So
Orleans.
did you have an athletic background as well?
No, my dad wouldn't allow me to play sports.
Okay. So this is where it gets juicy for me. Okay. So your dad didn't allow you to play sports.
Nope.
What attracts you to a football player? If you don't play sports, because typically, you may see basketball, girls basketball, guys get together. When I was growing up, the football guys loved track girls for whatever reason. So you not playing sports, what attracted you to Mr. Marts?
My dad is a huge sports fan.
Okay.
So like the first time that I told him that we were dating and I brought him home to meet my dad.
Oh, yeah.
My dad rattled off all of his high school
His stats.
stats.
Wow.
So he had been following him in high school. He knew all of his stats, knew his coaches and things like that. So I grew up watching football. I grew up watching sports with my dad. My dad's a big sports buff. So athletes and athletics and things like that, it was just a part of my family.
Yeah.
I'm one of 5 and I have 2 brothers. My brother played football. So.
Okay. So would you say this was an arranged marriage?
Kinda, no.
It sounds familiar.
My dad was excited though. My dad
Yes,
was
I'm
excited.
sure. So, I mean, it sounds familiar when you have fathers who, my dad was similar,
Yeah.
it's like you bring in you can bring in an athlete, anybody else doesn't belong. Okay,
Right.
so let's fast forward from Tulane. So you're playing linebacker at this point because in high school you were playing safety at one point?
Safety, defensive end, it was hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what point was there a coach at Tulane or maybe a mentor who says, okay, Lonnie, you can be a hybrid your whole career, but linebacker is kind of where you need to find your home position at?
No.
No.
I literally was a safety or a rover, still a hybrid, and did not have the opportunity to get drafted or learn what I was going to really do other than watching some of the guys that I was playing in front of me. And so I just kind of made my way in. My senior year, I started playing really well at linebacker, and it was still a rover, safety type. But, yeah, there was nobody who at Tulane was able to say, yeah, this is what you're going to do.
Awesome. So kind of explain for our viewing audience, because one thing I love about the linebacker position is you have inside, middle, and outside.
Okay.
So you were what linebacker?
I was more of an outside linebacker. Outside that could play deep middle field if necessary, as well as coming down and getting into the box, what we call the box, and stopping the run. So I was like I said, hybrid. I could cover receivers and I could make tackles in the box.
So explain the difference in the three, because to me, outside linebacker is the exciting position because you get to run. You know, you get to chase down the ball. You have an eye for the ball. And that typically is the linebacker on the field who runs the fastest 40. Was that the...
Usually that's the one that's the fastest. Usually,
so what was your 40 time?
You know, the fastest I've run is probably a 4.3.
Woo!
But when I got kind of leveled out, it was probably a 4.52, something like that.
Did y'all hear what he said? A 4. That's fast. That's moving. And for them to understand how fast that is, at the time when you ran that, what was your height and weight?
6'2", like 210, 212.
Yeah, you got to be. That's a lot of pounds, folks, to be moving at that speed. So, okay, now share with us the difference outside, middle, inside.
Okay, outside linebackers, they line up on the edge of an offensive formation and a defensive formation, which is not way out near the sideline, but at the end where there's a position, offensive position called a tight end. Outside linebackers usually line up in that area. When you have a middle or inside linebacker, the inside linebacker could be the weak side, which is usually where you have the least amount of receivers on the offensive formation. That'll be your, say, weak middle linebacker. But when you have that inside linebacker, he's the guy that's right there in the middle of everything, and he has to be a run stopper at all times. Of course, nowadays it's changing a little bit more. So,
a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that, how the game has changed, because you played 11 years, and so you've seen some changes in the game of those 11 years. And as a coach, you know, I'm sure you've seen that as well. Okay, so let's fast forward to the NFL. So undrafted, still make the team. And at the time when you were picked up by the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, that coaching staff that you had an opportunity to play for was stacked. You're talking about full of Hall of Fame coaches. So go down the list. Herm Edwards was there as a scout.
Tony Dungy. You had Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy was actually one that I just found was there.
Okay.
Marty Schottenheimer was head coach.
Right.
Kurt Schottenheimer was the special teams coach.
Uh-huh.
Had Bruce Arians was the running backs coach.
Yeah.
Tom Pratt was the defensive line. Bill Cowher was our linebackers coach and the defensive coordinator. I'm trying to think. Howard Mudd was the offensive line coach. There was, I think, Jimmy Ray might have been the wide receivers coach. And we could have had possibly Joe Pendry. There was a couple offensive coordinators, but Joe Pendry was the one that I remember right now as far as the coaches.
So let's have an out of football moment. At the time, you also had Christian Okoye was on the team, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have stories about him.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And we can tell them all because he's not here to say yay or nay.
You're right.
Okay, then you have Derek Thomas. So who actually scouted you and made the call to bring you in as an undrafted free agent?
There was a gentleman, Mark Hatley. He passed away since then, but Mark Hatley was the scout that came down to look at us and run us through our pro day. And it was only like 3 or 4 guys. And so we ran through the pro day. And funny story, I didn't get drafted, so I called. My mother made me call. Write a letter.
Mom?
My mom made me write letters to every team, which was probably 28 then.
Wow.
And I still have those letters, and made me call the scouts. And so you can imagine that doesn't happen today. But I called the scouts, and each scout said, yeah, you did this well, you did that well, but we just, I think we got enough guys.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt. So your mom was having you call to find out what they liked and disliked, or to see if you can get a shot?
No, to see what they liked and disliked, and to see if they were willing to bring me in.
Wow.
So I called Pittsburgh, I called Minnesota, I called Dallas, and my final call was I was supposed to call Green Bay. My final call was Kansas City. In Kansas City, Mark Hatley picked up the phone and said, yes, when can you get here?
Wow.
And I think I purchased a Nissan something that evening and asked Gionne's dad, could she ride with me up there, because I needed help driving.
This is great.
And I was off within, I think that was a Friday. I think we were off by Monday or Tuesday to Kansas City. Had no idea where we were going.
Wow. And so your dad lets you go because, of course, explain
my
that.
dad likes it.
Yeah.
My dad's a fan dude.
Take us into your house at the moment. So you get the call from Mr. Marts to say, hey, I'm going to Kansas City. You want to ride?
Well, the whole letter writing thing was kind of a family kind of group kind of project because my sister was there helping us stuff envelopes and things like that, getting the letters out to all the teams.
Wow.
And so when he got a team to bite, when he got Kansas City to bite, we're all like, okay, now we got to move because you know everything moves very quickly.
Right.
And he bought a car.
Were you married at the time?
We weren't married at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We bought a car, and so we were supposed to drive 16 hours from New Orleans to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And then I was supposed to hop on a plane
and go right
and
back.
come right back. Well,
tell us what happened.
Our first ride out, we're like driving out, we're 2-3 hours in, and we're like, oh, we're hungry. We're just gonna stop and grab some breakfast or something. Not like, I mean, we're like 21.
Wow.
With minimal life experience, so not understanding we got a 16-hour drive. We need to get some road under our belts. We're like just chilling, like, okay, we gotta stop and have breakfast. And so the trip actually took us like something like 21 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and my dad's like, you need to get back on the plane. You need to get back here, get on the plane.
Okay, so you guys get to Kansas City.
Yep.
What's the first thing that happens? You got to go to the facility.
Yeah, I got to go to the facility, and I got to start working out, start learning who my new teammates might be, and getting into obviously the groove of things. The first thing I did was go over and meet Coach Cower and talk to the coaches about what would be my daily schedule coming in and where I would be staying, because they actually put us up in apartments, told us where you can eat, great places to go eat. We're going to pay you a certain amount of money. You should be fine with that amount of money, that you go eat and take care of business. And so from that, it was just a grueling schedule of every day waking up and learning, like I said, discipline. You know, you got to get ready to play.
Yeah, and you did that for 4 years with those guys.
4 years,
so let's fast forward about 20 years. So half of those guys that we named are Hall of Fame coaches. Bill Cowher just gets in this year. So obviously you're watching that, as well as seeing the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl, and we'll get to that later if we have time. But what did that mean for you? Because as a rookie coming in, I mean, you don't know these guys.
Right.
You don't know 20 years from that point that they're going to be Hall of Fame coaches and players. But in retrospect, what does that mean for you?
To be honest with you, I've watched that championship game, the Super Bowl game, at least 3 or 4 times, because it's like you're there.
Yeah.
And your first team, I always say it, Kansas City has the greatest fans, and they are the wildest fans I've ever been around. And just, you know, I don't say that kidding or joking like oh yeah, but that's what I learned. And so it made me love the game. It made me love the fan base, and it made me love playing for that type of atmosphere, in that type of atmosphere. So to see them finally win a game after 50 years, a championship, and the guy who won it, I mean, it can't get any better. And so most of the time we're talking about how great it is to be a Chief and be able to identify with the fans and the organization and everything that has come to.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go back into the situation. So you fly back home.
Yes.
You went back home, right?
Yes.
You obeyed, okay?
I obeyed.
So you didn't stay and just kind of hang out. So she goes back home. At what point do you kind of say, hey, I need her here, and I need to make this thing real?
It was immediate. It was like, your dad said I need a job before we get married. I think I got a job, but I'm going to make sure I keep this job.
Wow.
And if I can keep the job, can I talk to your dad whether I can marry you or not? And I asked him, and I asked her, and we got married on the bye week.
Bye week that year.
Yeah. Took how many weeks to plan it?
4 weeks. Okay. Your life completely changes at this point.
Yes.
It's different. You can be a fan your whole life.
Yes.
You watch football. You're there with him through college. Now you become an NFL wife.
Yes.
What was that first year like for you? Just the transition and everything. I mean, everything that comes with being an NFL wife in a city like Kansas City.
Yeah. So, like Lonnie said, we got married in 4 weeks, and I show up at my first game. First of all, we're from New Orleans, where there's lots of seafood. There's things going on all the time. The city never sleeps. And then we find ourselves in the Midwest, landlocked. McDonald's closes at 9 o'clock, 9:30. I'm like, what in the world is this place?
What'd you sign up for?
Yes. What in the world have I signed up for? And it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like, I had not experienced that type of cold until that time. I remember my first game. I went in tennis shoes and like a little warm up because I'm like, it's freezing cold outside. You're laughing because you know where I'm going. I got my tennis shoes on, my warm up because I'm like, it's cold. And I look and I'm like, all the other wives have minks and things.
You're not properly dressed.
Hold up. So I didn't get the memo. I wasn't properly dressed. And I remember Marty's wife, they had a really good wives association there. And I remember her at one of our wives meetings, she said, make sure that when you go to the game that you're dressed like your husband's at a business meeting. So that changed my whole perspective about game days. So so I learned a lot as a rookie wife.
In that year, and when you look back on the 11 years that your husband was in the league and you're this football wife, do you have moments where you felt like you maybe had to kind of change what you were used to and who you are? Were there shocks of self-esteem and moments where it's like, what is this?
Yeah, because like what I found out being at Kansas City, when we were there, it was a winning team and so a winning organization. And after 4 teams, what I started to realize was based on how successful the team was, the wife kind of climate was kind of set by that. So like Kansas City, for instance, again, the team was successful. So, you kind of had to kind of find your place and fit in. And there is like kind of like a hierarchy when it comes to kind of the wives, because some wives might have seats in a box where the rest of us might sit outside in the cold. So it's interesting.
It's grueling.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, but one of the things that I always did was I made sure to make friends outside of the kind of the football wives kind of thing. Just one, because it keeps you grounded. It keeps you understanding what real life really is and keeps you connected to like reality and not like, and I always call it like a Disney like NFL life. So wherever we were, I made sure to connect with people, to find ways to connect with people who weren't moving in those same circles.
Awesome. So back when you signed with the Chiefs, do you sign a 4-year deal or how did that work out?
I signed a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal with an option.
Okay.
And basically had to play my way out of that one because if you understand contracts nowadays, this probably won't make sense to you. I signed a $60,000 contract with the second year being $66,000. I'm just
Come
glad.
on, 6,000 raise.
I'm just glad to be there.
Yeah.
And I got in, and there was a clause in the contract that said if you made the team and you were on injured reserve, you made half of that. I made the team. I was on injured reserve, and I made half of that.
Wow.
And so you can imagine when I picked up my check, and I'm looking at it like, whoa, wait a minute, something wrong. And so we talked about it, and I had my agent talk to them, and he would not talk to them the right way, and so I had to make my presence known on the team. And that same year, they created a practice squad, which was I was making 30, the practice squad was making 60. So if you got cut, you were making more than me, and I made the team.
Right.
And so we're like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
And so they kind of understood, and they brought me up to where the practice squad was. But because I started doing well and playing for them, and they could see me having a little bit better future with them, they actually came back to the table beforehand and gave me a 3-year deal.
Wow.
So they were expecting me to play.
Right. And so at some point your time in Kansas City ends and you move on to Tampa Bay Bucks. Okay. So family moves.
Yes.
So now we pick up, are there kids by this time?
Yes.
Okay, so now everybody picks up. We all moved to Tampa Bay, and your experience there was obviously different than Kansas City, I'm sure, and different for you as well. And now there's kids involved. So talk about how you kind of now make a home in Tampa Bay. At least you're back in the warm weather, so to speak.
Kind of in the South.
Right. So how do you kind of mentally prepare to end your career in Kansas and then hopefully get on another team? What was that transition like?
It was tough because I really liked Kansas City, and I thought they would offer me. And I think this is what most players do. They imagine that they're going to be offered by their team, and they're going to stay with that team. And when I wasn't offered by the team what I thought I was worth, it shocked me. But you know, I always talk to Gionne about this conversation because it was enlightening when she says Disney World. We were sitting out on the lakefront in New Orleans, and my agent calls me and says, "Hey, you know, Kansas City offers you $600,000 or $800,000. 49ers offered you like $840,000, $890,000. The Saints want the same, but Tampa Bay wants to pay you $1.3 million." Now, what you got to understand is I was making $175,000, and when all these numbers are exciting.
Right.
But I looked at my wife and said, "Oh no, I think I should be making like 1.5. You know, that's what I'm thinking." And she slapped me in the back of my head and was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "What's wrong? What are you talking about? I need to get my value." She said, "Boy, if you don't call them people up and tell them you'll take that 1.3 million, I will leave you right now." And I was like, "Okay, all right, well, I guess that makes sense." And so we went to Tampa, 1.3 million. Just, I mean, like I said, from 175,000 to 1.3 million. What you don't really understand at that time is the expectations that are put on you.
Yeah.
And I proceeded to have a terrible year, getting acclimated to everything they want me to do that resembled what another linebacker that really did well when he got there. Marty Nickerson was great, and they were comparing me to him. I didn't live up to it, so it was tough. It was a tough year, tough first year.
Yeah, and then eventually Warren Sapp comes in, and Derek Brooks comes in. John Lynch is there, strong safety. So one thing that he pointed out that I want to pose a question to you. So you guys get to Tampa Bay. You encouraged him to take the deal. Now things are not going as well as expected. So I'm sure there was a point of maybe where the mental pressure of that as well as the physical pressure on him now affects you. You're at home with the kids. What do you go through as a wife as your husband is transitioning in such a grueling sport and a grueling business?
Yeah. So Lonnie processes internally.
Okay.
So a lot of the stress that he felt, he didn't even really talk about. And like some of his pressurized situations and stories didn't come out until afterwards. So I'm oblivious really to the pressure. I just see him continuing to try to get better, working out in the heat after practice, working out on Saturdays after an early meeting or whatever. So like I'm not like totally aware of how terrible it is, because I'm like, you're still getting on the field.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm not thinking that is really terrible, and just managing the home, because my thing was from the very beginning, I'm like, go live your dream and I'll take care of the house and I'll take care of the kids, but you go live your dream. So I wasn't like really aware, because again, he's an internal processor.
And to hear her say that now, I mean, obviously you knew that that's what she was doing, but what did that mean for you to be able to focus here and not have to worry about what was going on back at home?
Oh, it was great. I mean, I can't say it. I mean, what can you say about that when a person just gives to you to say, "Hey, you go do your thing. I got this." And now it's like, this is where I go, why don't you go live your dream? Let me do what I'm supposed to do here at the house, because you did it for me, I need to do it for you. So that's what happens now. But back then, it was like, we got to go do this, and we don't know how long we're going to be able to do it. We're going to do it, and then when that time comes, we reciprocate.
Yeah, and talking about you don't know how long you're going to do it, I think in every pro athlete's mind, they it's forever.
Yes.
But more so, I think, in a football player's mind, because you guys, you have this like invincibility that you carry. So Kansas City, Tampa Bay, then Tennessee, then your final stop is in Jacksonville.
Yes.
Did you feel the end nearing? And how did you begin to process that? And I'm going to ask you too, because I see you squealing.
No, I didn't see the end at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, when I got here, I dreaded coming here. I literally got released from Tennessee, and my phone started to blow up with Tom Coughlin calling, wanting me to come that evening.
Wow.
And I said, no, I do not want to play there. I've heard stories. I'm not going. And so we're in the movie theater, and at the time we had pagers, and my pager's just going off, and I'm just like, throw it, and I'm like, I'm not listening. And finally, again, my wife talked to me. It's where we go. It's what we got to do.
Yeah.
And so I got on the plane the next morning and came to Jacksonville, and it was like, great, wonderful. Let's see what I got to deal with now.
Yeah.
And I get in, and I'm a replacement or an insurance policy for Bryce Pop. And so
Wow.
I step in, and all I know is to do what I do. And once I started to do that, eyes were open to the point of, okay, hold up. This might be our guy. Bryce, you just take it easy. And you imagine what Bryce started thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to get back on the field.
Yeah.
Well, I step in and start playing, and everything's going well. It's going really well. And it was 1999. And we are making headway to being one of the greatest teams ever in Jacksonville. And I'm playing middle linebacker, something I've never played before. And so it was a really good time transition. And the season ended, and they came in and said, hey, I was like, well, I did my job. Bryce is back. I guess I'll be out of here. And I remember Michael Hughes said, you're not going anywhere. You can just leave your stuff there in that locker, and we'll get your deal done, and I'll see you on such and such day. And they came in and gave me a great deal, and I was thinking I was going to be here. And the following year, we didn't do well. I got injured, actually. Kept trying to get back on the field, and that was it.
So talk about the mental strain on you while you are, because you didn't see the end nearing,
Right.
but then you get injured.
Right.
Trying to get back on the field, it's not happening. What's going through your mind?
How can I get healthy? Because I know if I get healthy, if I just fight through a couple games, maybe they'll go away and I'll be able to play and do what I'm capable of doing. And then everything will be right back in the world again, and we'll just keep moving along.
Yeah.
And I'll be played out my contract, and my thoughts were, I'll play out this 4-year contract and get everything and do well, and maybe at the end of it, I'll decide to take a job in the front office.
Gotcha. So you had your whole retirement plan mapped out.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I would like to finish out just in case I got to the end of that. Or
Yeah.
still doing well. Maybe I'll continue. No, but yeah, I was trying to make it to the end of that contract.
Yeah. So you see this happening.
Yes.
What's going through your mind? Did you have that female intuition, like, okay, I need to be prepared. I need to prepare the house, because by this time were all 5 of the children here?
No, just 3.
Just 3. Okay, so were you thinking, I need to prepare the household?
Yeah.
I need to prepare him?
Yes. He was the biggest one that I needed to prepare, because I'm like, I could see, because at this point, I think you're like 30, 31.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So you're old,
getting
at
old.
least.
Yes. I'm like, you're
Still
getting
good.
old.
Still good.
And never had we ever thought that we
Yeah.
would end our career here in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But I started seeing kind of the handwriting on the wall. And then when he got injured, I'm like, okay, it's time to wrap this up now.
Oh, wow.
But Mr. Invincible, I'm going to play football until I'm 50 is not thinking that. And so that was kind of a hard kind of place to be, because I'm like, I'm trying to be supportive and encouraging, but at the same time, I'm like, we need to wrap this up. This is coming to an end.
Yeah.
So it was kind of challenging.
But it was coming to an end for you too. So something you've been doing for 11 years,
Yes.
and had he not gotten injured, we could be talking about a 15-year
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
So did you have a moment of like I don't want to say separation anxiety, but like something's dying, so to speak? Did you go through that yourself?
Yeah, but I think it was like years later as we were
Okay.
trying to continue to transition from, okay, now what are we doing now kind of thing. But like in that moment, I'm kind of like, I can see it happening. I'm like, let's get
Right.
to it. Let's get it done. Let's wrap this up and move on to the next thing. So it wasn't until a couple years later where I'm like, okay, hold on, what are we really doing? Because we really, even though I saw it, we didn't fully prepare for it.
Yes. So what did the plan become, and when did the plan come to fruition?
Ooh, I kept trying to get back in, and there was a point where I felt healthy and had a tryout with the Saints.
Okay.
And everybody was excited because you might be able to come back
going
home
back
and play.
home.
I was excited just to be able to get back in and prove to Jacksonville that they were wrong. And I went there and worked out, and somewhere in that workout, I maybe tweaked the injury again. And at that point, I realized, okay, it's going to take a lot longer than I think it is. But the NFL doesn't wait for everybody. And so that was the point that, you said, okay, I'm going to cut my agent loose. I'm done. Now I got to figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
And so make your way back home and lick your wounds and keep going.
Yeah. But God has a plan.
Yes.
And so we know that his plan was for you guys to be here. So
Yes.
after life kind of settles and more kids come and you kind of decide, at what point did you have like a come to Jesus moment or come together moment to say, this is what we're going to make our living doing, and this is how we want to kind of embark out into ministry?
Honestly, I started my wife said to me, what do you have in your hand? It's biblical, obviously, a term. What do you have in your hand? It's Moses, what do you have in your hand? What are you going to work with that's in your hand? And what I had in my hand was I knew how to prepare myself to train. So I figured I'd get a certification, learn a little bit more, and start preparing other athletes for what I was doing, maybe at a lower level. And so we looked at that being, another income stream. And I got a hold of a couple schools. My kids were in Providence School. And so we talked to a couple parents there who knew I played, and they wanted me to train their kids. And from there, our business actually grew to literally where I was training, maybe about 5 to 6 athletes year round, all year, and making a good sum of money doing it. And so I got better at my trade. And so that was what I started doing.
And for a former professional athlete, how does that kind of give you a different perspective and a love for the game in a different light?
It lets you know that you're not going to be able to do it all your life. And so as you train athletes, you start to train them to say, what am I doing after the sport? And how am I going to respond to the many different opportunities that come at me while I'm playing the sport? And so for me, it made me go back into high school, through college, and the pros, and figure out exactly what I was thinking at these particular seasons, and to figure out what opportunities I missed as well as which ones I made good on. And so now when I talk to kids or athletes about training, about performing, I'm not talking to you about only being the best at whatever your sport is, but I'm talking to you about how do you recognize the opportunities that your sport or your play presents to you when you play. Because if you play and you just play and that's it, you're going to be left with probably I would say honestly a fourth of what you really can get out of a sport. But if you learn to network, to meet, or be a little bit better about giving back, and think of not only yourself but producing for others the things that maybe you couldn't reach, then at that point you've done a really good job of the little seed that you had in you, spreading it out to others, and you give it to them. And so it allows them to see, okay, every athlete doesn't just think about money. They think about things outside of money, how to give back to others.
And so when you look at just how because you guys have been married for 29 years. Congratulations on that. We don't see a lot of NFL, and I know you guys know this. You don't see people survive that long, and you were
Right.
there in the beginning, so you saw the before, the during, and you stayed for the after. How has your marriage, your ministry, your family evolved in your eyes in the course of this journey that you guys have taken?
Well, I think, and I can honestly say this, in the 29 years that we've been married, we've never used the D word. We've never threatened each other with the D word.
Come on.
Like, and that wasn't even something that we discussed, but just along the way, I mean, we've had our fallouts, knockdowns, drag-outs. I'm leaving the house, I'm going for a ride, whatever, but we have never threatened each other or even talked, like, the word is off the table. We don't, we've not even discussed that. But, really not finding our identity in the NFL life was huge.
That's good. Yeah.
Kind of like what I said before, I always tried to make sure that I found people and connected with people outside of that, because I knew it was only going to last for so long. And I'm like, that's not even who I am.
Wow.
And so just making sure that our identity was not found in the NFL life. So when it was time to kind of wrap it up, it was like, okay, this is
Bye.
now, you know.
Yeah.
And just like with the kids, it's funny now because we had the 3 kids while Lonnie was playing, and the 2 girls who came later never got to experience that. So now when people meet Lonnie or see Lonnie out and they start talking about his football career, they're like, oh, you must have been a really bad dude then. Okay.
My dad is bad.
So yeah, I think that was huge for us, just not finding our identity in that.
And how did you not allow, because that was something you played kind of your whole life, even though you didn't want to, you were engaged in it in a way that Mrs. Marts didn't see. So how were you able to disconnect and kind of sever the cord once your career was over? Or do you ever really sever the cord?
I don't think you ever really sever the cord, because I took up head coaching football as a kind of give me some time to this is my outlet.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I always worked for everything I had. And so I was never the superstar player. I was never the best guy on the team. I was always working for what I had. And so it kept me grounded, because I knew at any moment they could try to replace me. And so by staying grounded, knowing that, the reality was, it's going to come to an end. You are never the greatest guy on the team. You've never been.
Yeah.
But you keep doing what you do. You add value to the team. And when it's time to go, it's time to go. And so, I thought playing 11 years was great. A lot more than I ever thought I would do. So I had to take it and go. Take it and leave.
Yeah.
Run.
That's awesome. So now, as we wrap up, you guys have now found another passion, and that is in podcasting.
Yes.
So kind of introduce everyone to your podcast and kind of what it's about and how you arrived at that place.
So our podcast is called Family Fortitude Podcast. And the whole idea behind the podcast is we've been parenting now, and like you said, married for 29 years and parenting for 26 years, and just learned a lot over the course of time, and kind of like set our feet in not being moved by the culture, but having our feet planted in the Word of God and taking our cues for parenting and marriage from the Word and from other believers around us. And so, a couple years ago, God started nudging us like, hey,
share these nuggets.
Yeah. And, people would ask us, how y'all do it? I'm like, do what? Like, how'd y'all get your kids to do this and this? And we see so much fruit in your lives. And I'm like, really? Okay, cool. And God's like, no, come on, like, for real. Like, I want you to start sharing the nuggets and the things that I've taught you through marriage and parenting with other people. And so we found this to be probably like the best platform for us to be able to do it. So it's called the Family Fortitude Podcast. You can find us on Facebook.
Yes.
At Family Fortitude, and on Instagram at Family Fortitude. So, yes.
Awesome. And you are the athletic director
at Harvest Community High School.
Okay, so that's awesome.
Yes, taking on a different challenge this year. I won't be the head football coach anymore, but I will be coaching my coaches to do the right things for our kids.
Awesome. Listen, this has been fantastic. You guys are amazing. How can people keep up with you, keep in touch with you, find you, reach out to you, get nuggets? When are you guys going to write a book?
Oh, stop.
I just felt that in my spirit. You're supposed to write a book. It's her. You're supposed to write a book.
It's her.
How can people follow you and find you?
We're both on Facebook.
Okay.
Yep, Family 42.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram.
We're both on Instagram. Lonnie Marts Jr. on Instagram. I'm Because of Him on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Awesome.
reach out.
All that. And the book is coming soon.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we want a book. You got to teach these young ladies how to do this thing the right way. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here this evening.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Would love to have you back at some point. Maybe bring the whole clan and allow the 3 oldest to talk about how it was. I'll reach out to them. I know them. I'll reach out to them. Awesome. Well, listen, guys, that is it for us here at Get in the Game. A special shout out to my sponsors, 227 Boutique, my stylist, Barbara J, my production staff here in studio with me, Mr. Stefan Petty, Misha Allen, and the best momager on the planet, Melinda Henry, who loves that this is indeed a live studio. We definitely appreciate all those people that support Get in the Game. And you guys know where you can find me next Tuesday, same time, same place. Next week, a guy that you know, because I've seen you around the stadium, Ernest Wilford is going to be joining us to discuss his transition from playing football and now protecting the streets of Jacksonville. How awesome is that? So you guys don't want to miss that show. And for the next couple weeks, we will be featuring lovely people such as the Marts, talking about life after football. It has been our pleasure and my pleasure to host these two. We will see you guys next Tuesday.